too.
Simple-minded appeasement or wishful thinking about our adversaries is folly. It means the betrayal of our past, the squandering of our freedom.
We are rolling back the frontiers of socialism and returning power to the people.
The left argues that the Cold War came to an end. It didn't come to an end. It was a victorious outcome as a result of the steady pressure placed on the USSR by Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher.
The ruins of Berlin.
Out of the ashes of World War II, a new evil arose, an aggressive, expansionist Soviet Union. Now, battling the communist threat, Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher developed a relationship characterized by the same warmth and admiration as the one between Bush and Blair.
Reagan was, from her point of view, the prototypical American. Relaxed, broad-shouldered, handsome. They just clicked at a kind of elemental level. Now, beyond that, of course, what they quickly discovered was that here we had two people who had never met before, who'd come up in entirely different backgrounds and reached just the same conclusions about what was wrong with the world and what needed to be done.
Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher thought in similar ways, and they shared a common view that the Soviet Union would have to change.
Like President Bush, Reagan found that having a trusted ally across the Atlantic bolstered his own position around the world.
Reagan stands up and he's derided as a cowboy. He says we've got to stand up to the Soviet Union and rebuild our defenses, but you can't quite get away with deriding him as a cowboy because across the Atlantic, here's this tremendously impressive, articulate woman who says the same thing.
Both sides of the Atlantic, you had two visionary leaders who decided that the future of the free world depended upon the United States and the United Kingdom.
Both George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan made some of the most difficult decisions of their presidencies against the opposition of their closest advisors.
All of Reagan's advisors said, don't give a tear down the wall speech. Reagan did it. You see with, I think, George W. Bush, his big moment like that is with the surge.
I met with the American ranking diplomat on the ground who was full of ideas about what the president shouldn't say. It was clear that he didn't want President Reagan to be a commie basher, and he said, be careful about how you treat the wall. They've all gotten used to it by now.
Standing before the Brandenburg Gate, every man is a German, separated from his fellow men.
And I explained to the president, they'll be able to hear the speech on the other side of the wall. If the weather conditions are just right, I've learned, they can even hear it in Moscow by radio. Is there anything special you want to say to the people on the other side of the wall? And the president just thought and said, I can still see this almost in slow motion. Well, no, there's that passage about tearing down the wall. That's what I want to say to them. That wall has to come down.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Just like Reagan's speech, I mean, the surge was a kind of conceived by a lot of people as being overly aggressive, kind of a thin reed to be basing foreign policy on.
The leaders of the free world have stood up not only to their advisors, but also to each other.
Margaret Thatcher was very blunt. That's why she got the term the Iron Lady.
I would like to get on, if I may.
She didn't always get along with Reagan on all points.
Let's go on.
Well, I argued with her. Oh, Margaret, that's not right. Come on. Back and forth we go. She liked that.
One of the major clashes Thatcher had with Ronald Reagan was over the invasion of Grenada in 1983.
Grenada, we were told, was a friendly island paradise for tourism. Well, it wasn't.
Reagan decided to invade Grenada.
It was a Soviet-Cuban colony being readied as a major military bastion to export terror and undermine democracy. We got there just in time.
Now, the problem for Prime Minister Thatcher is that Grenada was a Commonwealth country.
Probably she was, in part, annoyed because she wasn't consulted, and it was part of the British Commonwealth.
You had with Blair and Bush strains. You don't want to paint a picture that it was all rosy for Bush and Blair, but they seemed to understand that history was often about determination, that you couldn't cower in front of a foe.
Even though we have different politics, we are like-minded in so many different ways, but our differences are just enough that makes each of us better.
Perhaps no one put it better than Thatcher herself.
The great Anglo-American alliance has been the greatest alliance the free world's ever known in defense of freedom.
Go right back to World War I, World War II, and now. And the world to be very grateful that America and England have worked so closely together to keep tens of millions of people free.
Bush and Blair carried the tradition forged by their predecessors into the 21st century. It will now fall to their successors to sustain the special relationship, a relationship based on common values, a shared language, and the enduring belief that freedom will triumph over tyranny.
They could really trust each other. They built this sort of personal bond very early on, and that, after 9/11, was cemented and took them a very long way.
History will look back and say that the relationship with Tony Blair and George Bush was a strong relationship based upon mutual trust and a shared vision.
And that is all the time we have left this evening. As always, thank you for being with us, and I hope you have a great night.